I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need. In the off-white Rari, baby, we run the streets. I'm a K-I-N-G, Westside royalty. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, that's all you need. I'm a K-I-N-G, baby, I'm all you need.
Welcome back, everybody. You're with Steven Basito, my podcast, Get It, and we are on the Social Nostra Network. So please make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you comment, like, subscribe. If you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, please make sure you subscribe. And of course, if you're listening to us on any of our radio programs, hope you enjoy the show today. So today's guest is Jalen Orchen. He is a former athlete of myself, and going through this series that we've been doing on student athletes, the student athletes that have made it to college or made it to pro, and then talking about also on the flip side of that, student athletes that are high level, do well, get into high school, maybe even play a season in high school, and then for some of those kids, they end up burning out, changing passions, but a lot of times it is that burnout syndrome. And I can speak for Jay. He was on my top gold level team when he was growing up through the ranks for a few years. He played up a couple of years, and he played up a year, and then as he got in 8th grade himself, he played at his level, but playing with the elite group and doing privates, doing workouts, going to practices, going to games, working out, just the grind that it takes, of course, to achieve that high level, and then going into a private high school where he was for lack of a better term, can't really say the word recruited, but scouted out a bit, I guess, and brought in. So welcome, my man. And I really want to just be able to dive into your journey. Jalen is in high school still, which is why I think this is so important, again, for parents of athletes and athletes themselves. This is very important to be able to hear his story. And so really what I'd like for you to walk us through is just when you developed the love and passion for basketball that you had starting, what your dreams and goals were, and then when those things started to change for you. So let's start on that first part of your journey, my man. So when did you really start being passionate about basketball, and what were those dreams that you had?
Really being passionate was probably around 6th grade for me. Like, I always thought, I was like, oh, I want to be an NBA superstar. I want to play at the highest level. I want to be able to play with some of my favorite players. You know what I mean? And I was just like, this is what I want to do. I want to keep doing this. I really love basketball, and I had high expectations for myself within basketball, but then I kind of saw it as at first it was just a hobby that I just played basketball with my friends and everything, but kind of around when I started playing club, I sort of developed a real love for it and a real passion to get better and everything.
Okay, and so you're going through, and that passion continues to grow. You're working hard. So when did you start to feel that passion, that you struggle with it, or burnout, so to speak?
Probably my in between 8th and 9th grade, because leading up to that point, before 6th grade, I was playing, but I wasn't serious. But 6th grade, I really started getting serious, and I started having my dad look for best people to get me to where I am, to get me to being the best at basketball. And I started seeing the cracks in between 8th and 9th grade, and I felt kind of like this is almost kind of like a chore to me. And not that I still love basketball, but not playing basketball as a future standpoint, because I enjoyed it, but I'd always you remember this, Steve. I took a break, and then I came back, and I loved it. And then I took another break and I came back, and it just felt like the same cycle to me. And it started like just a lot of negativity started to come from it, for me at least.
So what would you attribute that to? You know, you've had some separation now from basketball, and I would say, you know, hindsight's 2020, right? So where do you feel like, what were the things that you struggled with, and where for you was that breaking point where you was like, man, this just, you know what, maybe this isn't for me anymore?
Definitely just, it felt like I was living like the same day over and over again. Because I'd wake up early, I'd work out, I'd go to school, and then I'd have team practice, and then I'd go to bed, or do homework and then go to bed. And it just felt like the same. Well, that's what a grind is. It's just doing the same thing over and over again. But that's in a positive way. But the way I kind of felt, like it was just a negative experience for me.
And when did it become a negative experience for you? And in what way was it negative?
I definitely say summer, ninth grade summer into this year. Kind of the COVID, the quarantine era, I guess we can call it now. It was just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And I kind of was talking with my dad about it, and I told him I don't really see myself doing it anymore. And it was tough because my friends that's all they would talk about is basketball. And anytime we talk, I'm talking the friends on the basketball team, we would always they'd always talk about basketball, and I just felt like there's so much more I could be spending my time on. I could be getting myself mentally better. I could be I could be just performing. I know you wanted to talk about that later, but you know, I just I don't know. It was a sudden shift. I can't really point to where it was. I probably will, and eventually in a few years or so, but I can't really point out when it started becoming, you know, when I started making decisions in that area.
So would you say that you just hit mental fatigue and mental burnout from it?
Yeah, definitely. That's perfect.
Okay.
Just mental fatigue. Perfect.
And just so people have an idea, I think it's important to provide context. How much were you working out, training, shooting, doing all the basketball stuff? I mean, your world was basketball for quite a few years there. Yeah. So let's say 7th and 8th grade, which were really the more intense years for you. How many hours a day were you investing in basketball? Guesstimate
hours a day, probably close to 8 hours a day.
Okay, and that's typically what it takes, right? So understanding, and I think it's important again for people to understand, like, you never know what your kids are gonna turn out to be. You know, when you're talking about your kid playing in the NBA and they're in 3rd grade, that's a great dream that lots of kids have. Mm-hmm. But you know what people don't understand is that for every million kids that have that dream, one might make it. Yeah. Or less. You know,
not even, one or less, yeah.
And it also boils down to not just mental fatigue and burnout, injuries and being injury prone. There's kids who have had to drop out for that. I mean, there's just so many different variants and factors. But it does take a lot on you. It takes a lot on the toll on you physically, mentally, emotionally, and that's why sports is 90% mental. But that's also why I tell parents, let your kids play. Let them have fun. Let them figure it out over the first few years. You don't need to be an all-star in 3rd grade. Let your kid do their thing. And then as they get older, once they get into that junior high realm, that's when you can push them a little bit and help guide them. But it's really high school where it really matters the most to get to that next level. But, as you moved on to that, so you did have some other passions. And I know that basketball collided with those passions to some extent. And there was always a little bit of, hey, I gotta pick and choose certain days for certain things. I can't show up to a game because I have a performance. So getting into that, let's talk about a little bit of your other passions and things that you do enjoy doing that you're currently doing now. Why don't you walk us a little bit through that?
Okay. So in middle school, it wasn't really a problem with conflicting dates and everything because our middle school didn't have a basketball team or anything. So I was mainly doing performing arts and everything at school. And then in high school is when I really was like, yeah, this is rough because I'd have to miss most likely like months on end last year for plays and musicals and everything. And when I tried to split my attention, both sides were not my best. And like I'd miss certain dates for line memorization or certain big rehearsals. I wasn't all the way there. And then for basketball, I didn't have the time to, go out and shoot and everything. And I just, both sides they weren't my best. And I felt, I was being not a detriment to myself, but more, whether that's a cast and then the team. I was letting them down more than anything, and the coach and the theater director.
So now let's go into your talents. So you are quite the talented individual. So you sing, you act, you write, you direct?
I had to direct a little bit for my most recent play that we wrote. That was.
So you have all that, and you have a podcast.
Yes.
And it's on season 2 now.
Correct. Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about it?
So I got a podcast now, the Climb with Jalen. I started it around the COVID era. I started with one of my friends, and we produced, and I had about 9 episodes the first season. 8 episodes the first season. Yeah, 8 episodes the first season. It was so good. One of my episodes got to around 3,000 views, and given that it's self-funded, and I had to buy everything myself. I had to figure out how to do YouTube and how to cater to different people on social media and everything. And that was great. I took a big break starting when I got into school again, because sophomore year is not fun. And I took about a 7-month break, and then I just relaunched probably 2 weeks ago. I had my first episode last week and did very well. Shout out Houston Millette. Thank you for coming on. I just it's really enjoyable to see that, and even around school, some of my friends are like, the climb was dope. Like, I can't wait for the next episode, and it's really enjoyable, and I'm glad that I can share people's stories that don't normally have a platform to share. It's a podcast all about success, so I go over, I get the guest on, and they talk about what trials and tribulations they had leading to where they are now, and it's really interesting. You get to hear from these people the different stories.
So far.
Pardon?
Who's your most famous guest you've had so far?
My most famous guest, I had a YouTuber with 3 million subscribers on, and he's one of the pioneers of YouTube comedy. And we just talked about, and we talked, and he just said that it was definitely harder getting on the YouTube scene being a black man more than anything, because it was in around 2011, everything was separated. So it was called YouTube Black, I think, and it was separate content, and when everybody got integrated, they really blew up, and they really just were some of the best comedians.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So you've got, I think it's really important for people to understand too, that it doesn't matter what phase of life you're in, if you're reaching for your goals and working hard and staying dedicated to it. And you've started off with some of these goals very young. You are very young, and you're still moving forward with balancing so much stuff, and school and your home life and all the other things you got to do. And it's been fun watching you from a distance, as I don't interact with you a whole lot from what used to be right from day to day. Now it's more like, month to month.
Yeah, month to month, yeah.
Do a phone call, check in to see how you're doing. I see your social posts and all that stuff. But it has been fun watching how you've been developing and growing and evolving. And, so many people come up with excuses, but more importantly, for your age group, because you are under the age of 18, I mean, the average kid spends 10 hours a day on social media, which means they spend 70 hours a week. For people that didn't understand that, 70 hours a week on social media. Typical kids. You were a starter on JV for basketball. You act, sing, produce, write. You have your own podcast. You have all these different things you've been doing. And you're very constructive with your time. So really, lastly, how do you manage your time? How do you figure out day to day and week to week? And how do you really structure yourself so you can do the vast majority of things that you're doing? Because not a lot of kids are out there doing that stuff.
Thank you for that, by the way. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Really, it's all about just knowing what you want to do and loving what you want to do. Because, sometimes I feel like parents sometimes have something set for what they want their kids to do. And I think it's all about just letting them figure it out. And, just on how I manage my time, I love everything that I do. And it just feels like, oh, I'm going to hit this today. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this. And I kind of just block things out. And I know that it's not going to be like boring, for example, but it's just if I hit everything, I know I've had a successful day. And I just I feel satisfied at the end of my day when I reach the end and I'm like, this was a successful day. And besides homework and school and everything, it's just I had trouble figuring out what I wanted to do growing up so far, and I'm not done growing up, I guess, but I've had nothing but love and support from my parents in everything, and different mentors such as yourself. I've had nothing but love and support, and I just take something from every person that I talk to who's a role model to me, and you kind of figure it out, because that's another thing. You gotta surround yourself with a good group of people. And my dad uses this quote all the time: "You're the average of your friends and who you talk to."
It's true. It's a true statement. I think that's probably one of the most wise statements as well, because it is true. I've talked about it before. Your top 5 closest friends is who you are going to be. So if your top 5 closest friends are all drinkers and partiers and bums, well, that's who you're going to be. Unfortunately, you do have to surround yourself with a network and a group of good people that are driven and goal oriented. Really, if you're trying to be successful, and mentorship is incredibly important. I talk about that a lot. You want to have good mentors, people that want to see you succeed and are knowledgeable and will help you. Those are such really mature points that you made, and they're very accurate points that can't be overstated enough. And most people hear it and don't do much with it, and that's sad. One of the things I've talked about too is I'm a people pleaser. It's one of my biggest struggles, which my wife has helped me with boundary setting and challenged me and made me better with that. But one of the best things I ever did for myself, which was spurred on by my wife, was take a true look at the people in my life that take up time and evaluate who shouldn't be there anymore. And I did have to cut ties with about a dozen people, which, to be honest, needed to happen. A couple of these people were very, very bad people to have in my life in the first place. And, to be honest, since that time, every year I do an evaluation of the people I have in my life and who, is there somebody in there that I shouldn't have in my life? Thankfully, that hasn't happened for a few years, but it hurt in the beginning. It was hard to do, but it was so worth it, and couldn't be happier. My success in life with all my different businesses exploded when I got rid of the negative people in my life, the people that shouldn't have been in my life, the people I gave time to I shouldn't have given time to. So those are valid points. Those are very mature points. I'm glad that you brought those up, and this is why you will find continued success in your life. FYI, we're big MCU fans. You still need to get on the X-Men movie, and I still want to be your personal bodyguard, so don't forget me when you take off in Hollywood, okay?
All right, I will.
Hey, well, I really appreciate you taking the time. Going back to this, I think this is really important for parents of student athletes to hear, because so many parents continue to push their kids when their kids don't want to do something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't end well. And I've done this podcast before. You're just going to drive a wedge between you and your kids.
Yeah.
Your kids don't want to do something, listen. Now, as a parent of two girls, one of which does do sports, we make seasonal commitments. And that is incredibly important that they fulfill whatever that seasonal commitment is. That seasonal commitment could be 8 weeks, could be 12 weeks. After the season's over, or whatever that commitment was, we reevaluate, and if she wants to do it again, great. If she doesn't want to do it again, then we move on. But I do preach to her, finish whatever that commitment is, because we honor our commitments and then we move forward with something else. I think that there's a balance in that. If you are part of a club team and it's month-to-month kind of deal, you set hey, look, we're in the middle of winter. Let's get through till they do the next tryouts, that kind of stuff. But again, for parents of athletes, listen to your kids. If they're doing something they're not going to like, it's not going to benefit them, and it's not going to benefit you down the road. So I really appreciate you being on and giving us this perspective. Again, I think it's very important to hear it from somebody that has gone through it, and it was recent for you. So it was nice to be able to get some of those viewpoints and understanding of that. And of course, I'm excited to see how you continue to succeed, young man. For everybody that's watching, Jalen, go ahead and give them your Instagram handle so they can follow you.
It's The Climb with Jalen on everything, Instagram, YouTube. There's a Twitter now. Yeah, just follow me everywhere. New episodes weekly, yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, young man. And for everybody listening today, thank you so much for joining me. Steven Basita, I'm your host on the podcast. Get it? We are on the Social Nostra Network, so please make sure you follow us. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pandora, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, the gamut of everything. So please follow us, subscribe, like, comment. Again, I respond to every single comment that I've had. I appreciate the engagement. In a few weeks, we will do another fan questionnaire with Kevin Perkins, and looking forward to seeing you all again in another week. Have a blessed week. Take care. Thank you so much.